Hi, everybody. A big warm welcome to Deep Tech Diversity's first ever podcast. My name is Joe, and I'll be your host today. I'm the director for Enable Technology, which is a deep tech talent specialist operating globally, but based out of the green city of Bristol in the UK. Joining me today is an absolute superstar in the fields of AI, space, and data science. I'm really pleased to introduce Dr. Maya Dillon. Maya, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to hear your insights and your experiences in the deep tech sector. Super excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you to the rest of the team as well for inviting me. So I'm looking forward to our chat.
Can't wait. So for those who don't know, Maya is currently the Director of AI and Data Science for SoftServe, which is an international tech consultancy and digital services provider. She was also previously the UK lead for AI and Azure at Microsoft, so super impressive background to say the least. So to start off with, Maya, could you just tell us a little bit more about your background and what you specialise in?
Yeah, sure. So I am, as you just said, I'm the Director of AI and Data Science at SoftServe. So we're an international organization. It's a software development company. And my role there is actually to develop our strategic positioning in AI, both internally as an organization and for our clients. And that involves things like speaking to clients, informing our technological development, and of course, getting involved in all the thought leadership stuff that's happening around the world and engaging with our AI community too. And when I talk about engaging with our AI community and the thought leadership side of things, many people who know me know I'm absolutely passionate about AI as a solution for our current major challenges as society, but also creating some exciting solutions for business as well. But the thing for me that's super important is as we implement this really cutting edge technology is that we do it responsibly and sustainably as well. So that's where my focus is and has been in every organization I've been at.
Awesome. It's super cool stuff that you do on a day-to-day. I'm very jealous, to be honest. So before we kick off, I just want to tell you a bit about the why behind what we're doing. So a lot of people don't realize how impactful deep tech is to our day-to-day lives with things like AI, photonics, quantum computing, revolutionizing essential industries like healthcare, manufacturing, or retail. Deep tech is very much ingrained in our society, and it is here to stay. However, there is a huge lack of diversity in the industry, and moving forward, it will stunt its progression. Some research shows that in the UK, just 7.5% of deep tech companies are fully female founded. For contrast, 77% were fully male founded. In 2022, only 0.25% of European VC funding went to Black founders, which is a shocking statistic. And 75% of LGBTQ plus founders who were surveyed felt that they had to hide their identity from investors. This needs to change. One of the largest challenges, however, for me is that there is already a huge talent shortage to keep up with the continued demand of skilled and diverse workers in the deep tech landscape. And this year, I think Deloitte reported a global shortage of something like 1 million skilled engineers to meet the demands of the semiconductor market alone in order to meet its predicted revenue generation in 2030. So the purpose for us is to encourage and empower people from all walks of life to pursue a career in deep tech innovation, so that we can continue the unprecedented growth that we've seen over the last 20 years. It needs to be accessible. So that's the why, and that's why we're here, and that's why Maya is going to share her experiences with us. That's enough from me for now. We are here to hear all about Maya's journey. But before we start, I just wanted to provide a very quick trigger warning to our listeners. We will be discussing very sensitive topics around discrimination, harassment, and ignorance in the workplace. And we want this community to be a safe space for people. So we're just giving a heads up about our subject matter today before we kick things off. So Maya, over to you from here. To start off with, could you just give us an overview as to how you got into deep tech and what made you choose it as a career path?
Oh, Joe, I don't think you choose deep tech as much as deep tech chooses you. I have to say, oh my goodness, how did I get here? My journey was quite it's eclectic. It's not a direct path going straight out of university into doing deep tech. And I just also want to add to your narrative around it being a very sensitive topic we're going to talk about here. For me, I'm going to embrace this safe space because, yeah, some of these things I'm going to talk to you about in terms of how I got to the position I am today are going to be challenging to hear, and they're going to be difficult potentially for me to also discuss. But going back to your question around my path here, initially I was hoping to be destined for academia of all things. So I have a PhD in astrophysics. And during the world economic collapse in 2008 and 2009, I was pretty much forced to, like a lot of people, to redefine myself and my career. And while I was developing myself, I went into coaching for myself. And then I realized this is something I really enjoyed doing, and I wanted to do this for other people. So during for 3 years, I was a corporate and executive coach where I had the absolute privilege of working with a lot of very talented individuals who were moving out of academia into industry and, supporting their career paths. I worked with actually about a dozen CXO level leaders as well during that time, way before I got into AI as well, to support their leadership progress and their position as well. And then 2013 came along and we had the era of big data being the new oil. That's what everyone started to talk about. And I was in a very unique opportunity where I could repivot my career again. So I developed a love for business. I had a background in academia, and now there was this need for a whole bunch of data scientists. A brand new career path had opened up, and it was an especially exciting time for me to come into a world where I could apply both my academic and research and analytical skills, combine it with business, and work in sectors I've never worked before. Long story short, I've worked now for a number of startups, a whole bunch of multinational corporates. One of them, as you mentioned, was Microsoft. And my current role is also global, where I am supporting, as I said, our strategic positioning in SoftServe, and working closely with the rest of the global AI community on making sure that we deliver and develop AI responsibly.
Fantastic. And a wearer of many hats, I think most of us would probably agree with. So was there anything that made you want to become a leader, or did it sort of naturally arrive to you throughout your career?
I think people are going to resonate with the fact that you can have proclivities for certain career paths, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, just a quick bit of my background, I'm the eldest of 7 children. I'm the eldest daughter, and a lot of people out there know that the feeling of just even being the eldest, right? You have this air of responsibility that's placed on your shoulders. But I was also, just a little bit of insight, a carer from a very young age for my family as well. I was also an interpreter. My parents were immigrants. And it's something that kind of got nurtured through my childhood. However, having said this, when it came to my career proper, moving into academia, a few people will actually talk about how when you are reading for a PhD, it's actually the foundational level of getting into a career path in academia, right? You are proving your leadership capabilities there, your capacity to run a team, apply for grants and such. So you're already moving into that kind of leadership role there. And then as time went on, I've run my own business. I had to lead that. That was inevitable. That was always going to be the case. And when I went into data science and AI, I thoroughly enjoyed not just working hands-on on projects. Whilst that it was enjoyable, I knew that my impact would be greater when I was working alongside teams and putting people together, working cross-functionally, multiply disciplined teams, multiply discipline. I can't even say the word. Forget it. But multi-talented teams, I'll go with that. I felt that my impact was greater then. And of course, that requires you to employ leadership skills and capabilities. So it was as much as opportunity plus calling plus a natural drive and inclination. And it's going to sound like a bit of a shock to the system to say, but I'm a firm believer in what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And getting to this path has been filled with an awful lot of challenges. And I have to say some of them, yes, are unique for someone of my demographic, and others people will, on the general spectrum will be able to resonate with. But I feel like I am the leader that I am today due to some of the experiences I've had before.
Of course.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that leads nicely on to my next question as well, because you see leaders in the industry who come from diverse backgrounds, and people think that there just must be a certain strength to them or a certain aura around them that makes them a leader. But the reality is that there are still a lot of barriers that these people can face on that journey and still do face today. So I guess my question would be, when you first made that step into leadership, how did you find it as a likely minority in the business that you were a part of?
Oh gosh, that's a very difficult one to answer, in the fact that for me, my fundamental objective was to achieve or acquire a role so I could be impactful. So I went with it on those things. Secondary was, how will people perceive me, if I'm brutally honest? And I have been very fortunate throughout my career to actually have a number of white male advocates in my career to help me acquire the positions that I have. And I would be, however, I feel that the positions I have acquired are actually through the strength of the merit of my own capabilities and skill sets, right? And it should be that way. It should always be that way. Having said this, though, I still had to be far smarter than anybody else in the room. And that as a general thing, yes, if you want, as someone who's also hired, I want the best person in the room, right? But the challenge was always almost like to be almost like 1,000 times, the exponentially better, basically, than the competition. So for me, coming from the minority, female, Bangladeshi heritage, socioeconomic challenge as well, because let's face it, working in deep tech is, a rich person's game as well, right? I grew up below the poverty line on a council estate, for goodness sake. So coming to this kind of world and talking to individuals and people with very different life perspectives and social attitudes was also a challenge as well. So I had to be even more adaptive. I had to be even more socially aware, as well as incredibly technically capable as well. And if anything, when I look back at all of that stuff, all I can say is it just made me damn good at what I do. And I have to be, because I would expect the same thing from others as well. So I don't see what I went through as much as a negative thing, as much as the challenges made me who I am, and they've made me a stronger and better leader, and someone who can serve in a better capacity as well.
For sure. It's a really positive mentality to take, even though it can be very difficult sometimes, I can imagine. So we talk about barriers, and I think we talk about both visible barriers and invisible barriers, because there are some things that people don't see on a day-to-day that can really halt a career path or discourage people from even pursuing a career path in the industry at all. You will have faced several throughout your career, and I just wondered if you could outline some of those barriers that you have faced as a minority in the industry, and moving on from that, I guess how you overcame them or are still trying to overcome them.
So this is where the trigger warnings come into play, right? So if people find this a little bit difficult to listen to, please do also understand it can be also difficult for me to talk about these things. So when I am discussing all of this, this is not to be accusative or somehow bring up old wounds or anything like that, as much as it is to talk about how these things happen everywhere, right? And these were also my challenges. You cannot argue with my experience. I'm just telling you. These are things that I have, faced in reality. And as far as I'm concerned, I feel have made me a stronger individual. So yes, we talked about the visible and the invisible. Visibly, I walk in, I'm the brown-faced girl, 5 foot tall, and then I tell you I have a doctorate in astrophysics and I'm your head of AI. Yeah, I have had a lot of men just look at me, literally look me up and down and wonder what I'm doing there. It has actually happened. Then there have been, there's that moment, I've seen it. And then things shift because I open my mouth. I talk about, how I'm here to serve, how I can support a client or an organization in solving its problems. And things do for the majority of the time shift. You are still, though, going to get those individuals who will take things to a different level. And you know what? That's none of my business. I'm here to serve. I'm here to solve a problem. I'm here to provide a service. And there is a saying where what other people think is none of your business. And it's true. It really is true. And if I spent all my time, and I did, as we all do, worry about what other people think, there was a point where I came to a conclusion, which was, if I spent all of my time wondering what everybody else is going to think of me, I am losing time and energy where I could be focusing on developing myself further and how I present myself. So I've had things like that. And then I'm going to talk about what I do want to touch on is something that few people still talk about, is how, as a female, I've come in and I've had other women, other females just look at me as if I was the competition. And that's understandable because, opportunities, we're already almost, the system pits us against each other. Let's just be honest. However, a lot of people do, because we, just like I say, it's the way the system is run, see success as a zero-sum game. If you are doing well, I must not be doing well. And it makes progression really, really tricky. So working with other leaders as well, and I'm broadening this out to sex and gender, you still get this attitude of like, oh, this person has walked into the room. How much of a threat are they to me? Right.
Yeah, I see.
So that's a challenge in and of itself. And like I say, there's only so much I can kind of like address this directly. And the majority of the time, I just have to let it go. I have to let these individuals deal with their own issues whilst I do the very thing I've been brought in to do, which is to solve a problem and be impactful and empower people and do it in an inclusive fashion, regardless of what other people's attitudes are.
For sure. It's very admirable, the resilience that you have developed. It's obviously frustrating that that level of resilience is needed in the first place, but I think your attitude towards your end goal is really impressive, and I think it's something that should be adopted by others who are perhaps considering following a similar route. Do you think that these barriers are caused by, they're caused by a multitude of things, but is it, in your opinion, ignorance? Is it lack of education? Is it a mixture of the two? Where does it come from your perspective?
It's all those things and more, right? We've already touched on it in terms of when we're talking about the societal expectations, social, economic.
Sure.
We're talking about deep tech being a rich person's game. We've already touched on those things. There is a new level of ignorance which surprised me very recently, in the fact there are a lot of people out there who don't know that this is happening. So it's going to sound really strange to those who are, we are catering to an audience who are going to be very open to talking about diversity in deep tech, right? But for this audience who are open to hearing this discussion, they have to be aware of the fact there are people out there who don't know that this is happening.
Yes.
And I know it's going to be a surprise, but I have actually met male leaders, men, who have actually been surprised when I tell them I've had difficulties getting where I am. Now, that's amazing. They're looking at me as a human being and they're saying to me, well, this is just Maya. I mean, why would she have such difficulties? But there is an issue with that. If you are going to be closed off or rather ignorant of those things, and you can't change anything out of your awareness, by the way, right? If you're not aware of it, you can't change anything. It's up to every one of us, incumbent on every one of us, to actually educate ourselves, right? Raise things to our awareness. But yeah, it's a mixture of life experiences, career experiences, and some of these things are just self-perpetuating until someone comes in and says, actually, this is going to be a problem, or this is a problem. No change actually happens. And the challenge here as well is people are afraid to actually still talk. You and I having this discussion, this is, as I started off, we talked about trigger warnings. I said about embracing this safe space. This is me being vulnerable here too as well. That it's difficult to actually vocalize some of these things and actually put them in a podcast where you can hear my voice and you can hear the nuances and the intensity of what I've experienced. And I'm hoping that as well, what we can do is, whilst we've talked about what the lay of the land actually looks like we can shift it. We can make these nudges and small changes through raising awareness. And I'm hoping just by even mentioning this whole thing that there are people out there who don't think this is a problem. If you actually are one of those people, you might want to actually think about maybe having some more conversations. So yeah, in answering, coming back round, it is a whole myriad of things. And sometimes for some people, it's the fact that they've had it easy and it's been a comfortable path and progression for them versus other individuals.
For sure, and it's a really interesting perspective when you talk about awareness, because I think when we talk about diversity in deep tech, the problems that we outline are always the people doing the discriminatory acts and the people who are actually using those poor practices to push others out of the industry, whereas what isn't discussed enough is the people who aren't necessarily a part of that, but they're so unaware or ignorant that it goes on that it can, you can become part of the problem yourself by just completely ignoring it or lacking that awareness. So for a lot of people, and for me personally with this community, it is about educating those who haven't experienced what other people have. And I think by raising that awareness, you will turn the tide, or at least we hope that we will, right? So thank you. Yeah, it's a really, really, really interesting perspective, and one that I think a lot of people do overlook sometimes. So moving on to some of the impacts, or the positive impacts, I think that increasing the diversity in the deep tech sector can bring. To start with, have you seen any positive change since you stepped into the industry?
Oh yeah, definitely. Even from the points where right at the beginning of my career, when I decided to retrain, actually even before that, when I'd moved into a career of corporate and executive coaching, by definition, I was working with individuals with masters and PhDs, these highly qualified individuals who were like, okay, I had imagined being in academia or this particular field for the longest time, and now my opportunities have suddenly, disappeared. What do I do now? And these individuals come from a whole host and different backgrounds, and they themselves as well have experienced different societal and cultural and economic challenges, and all of them wanted to make a difference. And when I made the transition into data science, I was seeing lots of individuals with those kinds of backgrounds and experiences wanting to actually input their insights and their experiences into the field, right? So what was lovely was we were already working into that environment where people were saying, we need that diversity, we need that inclusivity. And there were people there who were saying, let us be a part of that journey. So yes, while we did have this whole thing of and we still do, unfortunately, where we do need to increase the diversity quota, we need to have teams that are much more inclusive. There's no shortage of people wanting to do this. And the funny thing is that when you were talking about earlier on about the shortage of skilled workers from the Deloitte statistic, we still need to actually bring in more people from those different and diverse communities who need to know that this is an option for them too. Half the challenge isn't just people getting in and finding those jobs. It's people knowing that those opportunities are there for them to actually take. And what I'm actually seeing in terms of positive impact is I'm seeing a call from the top, from the strategic level, from the CXO level, who are actually saying, do you know what, we want an organization that's representative of the clients we actually serve. And on the kind of on the front line where people are actually coding and munging and wrangling data, saying that we want to actually create teams that are inclusive and diverse so we can create solutions that serve the communities and the demographics that we are creating the solutions for. So I am seeing a lot of positivity. The challenge, if I may even end on that, which is also an opportunity, is bringing those things from top down and bottom up actually, and making those things very real and consistent through organizations as well. So yes, I have seen these things. It's a matter of persisting, I think, more than anything. It's a matter of opening more channels and opportunities for individuals who think data science isn't for them, who don't think AI is for them. We've gone out of our way for the last few years to talk about democratizing AI, and we have been very, very successful in doing that. You just have to look at the world right now in terms of generative AI and the impact it's had. It's because we have democratized AI, right? We've made it accessible for everybody. And it's for those individuals who are utilizing this as end users to also realize actually you also have the power to develop and create as well in this field, and take this to business and impact the world overall as well.
I completely agree, and I think it's all good and well if we were to find those 1 million skilled workers to meet all of these crazy demands, but if all of those 1 million people are of the same demographic, the challenges that we will see from there is the stagnation in innovative thinking, the bias when you're going through those technology development periods, because you only have the opinion and life experience of one set of people, and that will stagnate the innovation that we're seeing in the industry as a whole moving forward, because all of the products and the amazing things that we'll build off the back of it will be based and set for one set of demographic, and that's just, it doesn't help anybody, right? So it's food for thought, and why this topic is so important. So we talked about the barriers, and we talked about the positive impacts that we have seen so far. What other changes would you like to see in the deep tech ecosystem that you think would make it more supportive, but also more accessible for diverse people?
So when I'm talking about my role as, and I do regard myself as a servant leader, a big thing for me, and if I hadn't already indicated, I'd already talked about my work as a corporate and executive coach, is to actually see other people do well. I get high off seeing other people do well. I am very, very passionate about seeing people reach their potential. And a huge part of that involves educating people. It involves empowering people and enabling them as well. And in case people start thinking, oh, so what's the difference between all those things? Educating involves not just only acquiring those hard skills and those soft skills, it's also knowing that you can apply them, right? That's where the empowerment comes in as well, right? Once you know that you've got these skill sets, the empowerment, you should feel like you can do these things, right? But that means nothing without the enablement side of it. And the enablement side of it, this is where you start talking about what changes need to occur. You'd already touched on things like VC funding. You'd already touched on things like opportunities at the board level, maybe even as well, and CXO level. It's creating those opportunities and being proactive on outreach as an organization and saying, we are here. We value your thoughts and insights. We would love for you to teach us. Right? Educate us, enable and empower us. This thing goes both ways. It's something I tell my clients. I've had the privilege of being able to support individuals make those career transitions. And one of the things I say is when you go into a job interview, everyone thinks it's like, I'm just trying to impress the employer. It's not about that. It's a two-way thing. Your employer must understand you as well, right? Yes, you are the asset. The company is an opportunity, right? Those things need to mesh, need to match. Whoever is about to take you on, the hiring manager who's looking at you, will be thinking, okay, what can this individual bring to our organization? And some of those questions when you are asking, like, what does an individual bring to our organization, is what is the value that this individual is going to give to us? What insights are they going to provide? And going in with those open minds allows us at a very fundamental and foundational level to open the channel for people to come in from diverse backgrounds as well. So yes, education, empowerment and enablement being a huge part of it as well. It's not just enough to know I've got the skill sets and I can do something. You need to be able to do some of those things, right? And it begins with people who are in positions of power, of authority, and of influence to advocate as well. So that's a big thing. So having advocates at all sorts of levels in an organization, all sorts of stages and careers, looking at other people who are looking to provide value, to support, to serve, opening the door for them too. And I think that's super important. So the empathy thing as well, if I may add in all the E's, is super important as well, right? So, do you know what? I'm going to write a book. There you go. So
the 4 E's of diversity.
The 4 E's of diversity. Right, that's it. I'm copywriting that before somebody else jumps on it. But yes, understanding that you're not the only one. Like for myself, I just talked about having the struggles that I have had. I'm not the only one who's gone through this. Right. There are other people out there who have had that. And for me to be sure that I'm also developing and growing diverse teams, I have to keep my mind and my eyes and my heart open. I'm talking about heart in business, but it's true, right? We all are human beings at the end of the day. It's really important to make sure that whatever we create, especially in the context of AI and the deep tech solutions, we get the right people doing, amazing things, essentially.
For sure, I agree. So I was going to actually ask you around where you feel this change needs to start, but I think you touched on that really nicely in your answer there, and it seems like it's having advocates for you, right? And it's having people
Mm.
who aren't impacted by these challenges advocating or supporting those people who do face them to make it more supportive, but to make it more accessible for them as they're moving their way through the ranks, where wherever it might be. Take myself as an example. I am a white male. I cannot hide that. I have had a relatively privileged upbringing, but I still recognize the issues that my peers face on a day-to-day basis. And my opinion is that if I can recognize it, everybody else should be able to recognize it, because just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean it's invisible. And I think education, or the 4 E's that you talked about, are all collectively as important as each other in order to drive change, because without empathy you will not want to be educated. Without education you will not understand the challenges, and it's a domino effect, right? And I think if you get all of those things right, that's when you start to see the real positive impacts happening.
I was going to add a little something extra to all of this. So I touched on earlier on, we talked about how nothing can change out of your awareness, right? You have to know that there's a problem before you can even address it. If you're listening to this and you think there isn't a problem, that's literally the point at which you say, okay, maybe I need to look at this, right?
Yes.
If you are looking at this and thinking, I don't see what Maya is talking about, that is your opportunity to expand your own horizons and your awareness. If you are thinking that this is somebody else's problem, that is definitely your opportunity to actually think, okay, maybe I need to educate, enable, and empower myself as well, and have empathy. If you're not even empathy, because empathy is about putting yourself in that other person's situation and knowing and feeling what they're experiencing. I cannot be empathetic to Joe Molson as a white male. I cannot. I can be sympathetic. And that's where the other part of it lies, right? Okay, I may not completely feel your feelings, but I can understand and sympathize with the fact that I cannot be in your shoes, but I understand that you will have difficulties or challenges. And I think that's super important as well. So if you're sitting there thinking, not sure what's going on here, that is the perfect opportunity for you to actually even literally get on your computer or even reach out to your colleagues sitting next to you and say, what is your experience of the world to date? Literally that.
I was going to say, I think that's probably the easiest and most accessible way for people to educate themselves is by speaking and by learning and by hearing other people's experiences. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve today. If even one person tunes into this and realizes that actually they have been overlooking some of these challenges for a long time, then that's fantastic. We've solved one of those issues and we're moving in the right direction. So I'm completely with you. To cap things off, there are going to be people listening to this who are perhaps in their studies or perhaps considering a career change because they've always been passionate about the deep tech sector but have never really seen a way in because of these barriers that are in front of them. What advice would you give to those who are considering a career in deep tech but are perhaps hesitant?
Don't hesitate. Do what you love. And that would be advice I'd give anybody in any part of their lives, in any stage of their careers, right? It's the same piece of advice. If you do what you love, the passion, you bring that passion, success always follows. I'm a firm believer of that too, right? The issue comes in from when you believe two things happen. One, you'd believe there shouldn't be any challenges. That's not a realistic way to live life. We live in the real world here. Challenges are going to happen. Yes, some of those things are going to be unbelievably and brutally unfair. But facing them, and as I was saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, is actually going to shape you as a leader. If coming out of it, you come out better, not bitter, you come out stronger, more resilient, you rise. If you keep rising to all of those challenges, you are going to, if you don't see that hero, that person of inspiration rather, it won't take you long to realize you're going to be that individual yourself. You are going to be someone else. Someone's going to look at you and think, should I do it? Right?
Sure.
So I'd say don't hesitate, do what you love. If you think that this is the right thing for you, then go into it. Yes, you are going to experience challenges. The other side of it is thinking that those challenges are too great to overcome. They're not. We have seen changes in the world on a fundamental level, right? We've seen various different acts in the workplace, everything from gender equality to the Equality Act in much more recent times, right? Disability Act as well. The changes are happening, and that only happens when people like yourselves who are listening to this go, do you know what? I see these difficulties. I'm going to face them head on, and I'm going to add my voice to the mix. And maybe it's difficult for me right now, but the path I blaze is going to make it easier for someone else behind me. So yeah, maybe if you are hesitant, it's fine. Be cautious, but don't let it consume you, because facing some of these things head on is actually going to make you not just a better contributor, it's going to make you a better leader, and you're going to create solutions and opportunities for other people, solutions for businesses and opportunities for other people who come after you too.
Super inspiring, Maya. Honestly, it's always a pleasure to hear you articulate your experiences in the few conversations that we've had in the last few months. My final question for you is a bit of a raw one because it is related to yourself. So we've given some advice to our listeners. What advice would you give to yourself or your younger self before you broke into the industry? If you had a chance to jump in a time machine and jump back to when you were first finishing university, is there anything or any message that you would pass on to yourself for the future?
I would probably advise myself to waste less time on worrying about what other people think and not dwell on the things to overcome as much as just dealing with them, just going straight through it. So I used to do martial arts. Anyone who does Taekwondo knows about breaking boards. You always punch beyond the board, right? We talk about breaking the glass ceiling and shattering things. You always punch beyond the board, right? Imagine that board being those challenges. If you just look at that, then you are not going to solve your problems just by staring at them, right? You have to think what's happening beyond that. And I spend an awful lot of my time thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to overcome that? And when we talked about people hesitating moving forwards, the time you spent hesitating and worrying, that time could be spent with asking the fundamental question, how do I deal with this? How do I overcome this? What am I bringing to the table? What is it that I want to achieve and contribute to the world? And in the face of that kind of resolution or resolve, rather, things do become easier. Or rather clearer. Maybe that's more to the point, right? Your problems are not going to be solved overnight. But what I would tell myself is that, yes, you do and you will overcome. So spend less time worrying and more time in the doing. So that's what I would tell myself. And I think what would have happened is I hopefully in this alternate dimension that I'm in, maybe I would have achieved some of these things a little bit sooner. But
I love
here
it.
we are. Yeah.
Maya, thank you ever so much for taking the time to share your experiences and views on the diversity landscape in deep tech. I really hope that those listening will take encouragement and empowerment from your story. You've clearly achieved some amazing things throughout your career, and it's not been easy, but as you said, you've punched through the board every time and you've come out much stronger, and it must be truly inspiring for those listening. So if anybody does have any follow-up questions for Maya, I will drop a link to her socials in the comments. This is a podcast, so it's not a live event, but I'm sure that if it was, we would be having a massive round of applause for Maya for what she's done today. So thank you ever so much again. You are a superstar.
Oh, thank you, Joe. And I want to finish on the fact that it's not over yet. I'm still going strong, right? I'm only 45. This is just the beginning. And when I was saying in this alternate dimension, maybe I would have done things sooner. You know what? Things happen when they're meant to. And what I mean by that is when you're ready to overcome these challenges, you make all of these things a reality, right, for yourself. And I'm looking forward to actually the next set of challenges that I have to overcome, mainly because I'm looking forward to meeting the other version of me on the other side of it. And I am so looking forward to chatting and meeting with the other individuals who will be listening to your podcast as well. It's been an absolute pleasure, Joe, and thank you so much for creating this space for me and giving me the opportunity to share my story.
Thank you so much again, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So, to everybody listening, to round things off, we are always looking to connect with diverse leaders in the deep tech sector who have managed to forge a career and create success for themselves, even with the various barriers that they might face on the way. If you would like to share your story to inspire and encourage others, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear all about your background. To our audience as well, thank you for listening. We will be back very soon with another interview, this time exploring the diversity of quantum technology, which is a topic that's really close to my heart, actually, especially given the advancements over the last few years. So tune in to find out more about that. But for now, we will see you soon. Thank you again for tuning in, and please reach out, and we'll be back shortly. Have a great day. Take care.